ॐ शुक्लांभरधरं विष्णुं शशिवर्णं चतुर्भुजं प्रसन्नवदनं ध्यायेत् सर्वविघ्नोपशान्तये। ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करभावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः। अगजानन पद्मार्कं गजाननमहर्निशम् अनेकदन्तं भक्तानाम् एकदन्तमुपास्महे। श्रीमहागणपतये नमः। गुरवे सर्वलोकानां विषजे भवरोगिणां निधये सर्वविद्यानां श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। अस्मद्गुरुचरणारविन्दाभ्यां नमः। वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुं। ज्ञानानन्दमयं देवं निर्मलस्फटिकाकृतिम् आधारं सर्वविद्यानां श्रीहयग्रीवमुपास्महे। श्रीहयग्रीवमूर्तये नमः। सरस्वती नमस्तुभ्यं वरदे कामरूपिणि विद्यारम्भं करिष्यामि सिद्धिर्भवतु मे सदा। श्रीमहासरस्वत्यै नमः। उमाकोमलहस्ताब्ज सम्भावितललाटकं हिरण्यकुण्डलं वन्दे कुमारं पुष्करस्रजं। வெற்றிவேல் முருகனுக்கு ஹர ஹரோஹரா. லோகவீரியம் மகாபூஜ்யம் சர்வரக்ஷாகரம் விபும் பார்வதி ஹிருதயானந்தம் சாஸ்தாரம் பிரணமாம்யகம். சுவாமியே சரணமையப்பா. வாகர்த்தாவிவ சம்பிரக்தௌ வாகர்த்த பிரதிபத்தயே ஜகதः பிதரோ வந்தே பார்வதி பரமேஸ்வரौ. ஸ்ரீ பார்வதி பரமேஸ்வராभ्यां நமः. कोमलं कूजयन् वेणुं श्यामलोऽयं कुमारकः वेदवेद्यं परब्रह्मा तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। अस्मद्गुरुचरणारविन्दाभ्यां नमः। श्रीकृष्ण गोविन्द हरे मुरारे श्रीनाथ नारायण वासुदेव। श्रीकृष्ण गोविन्द हरे मुरारे श्रीनाथ नारायण वासुदेव। श्रीकृष्ण गोविन्द हरे मुरारे श्रीनाथ नारायण वासुदेव। पीताम्बरं करविराजितचक्रशङ्खकौमोदकी सरसिजं करुणासमुद्रं राधासहायम् अतिसुन्दरमन्दहासं वातालयेशम् अनिशं हृदि भावयामि। कृष्णो रक्षतु मां चराचरगुरुः कृष्णं नमस्ये सदा। कृष्णेनैव सुरक्षितोऽहमसकृत् कृष्णाय दत्तं मनः। कृष्णादेव समुद्भवो मम विभो कृष्णस्य दासोऽस्म्यहं। कृष्णे भक्तिरचञ्चलास्तु भगवन् हे कृष्ण तुभ्यं नमः। श्रीगुरुवायूरप्पा शरणं नम्राणां सन्निधत्ते सततमपि पुरस्तैरणभ्यर्थितानपि अर्थान् कामानजस्रं वितरति परमानन्दसान्द्रां गतिं च। इत्थं निःशेषलभ्यो निरवधिकफलः पारिजातो हरे त्वं क्षुद्रं तं चक्रवाटी ध्रुवमभिलषति व्यर्थमर्त्यव्रजोऽयं। श्रीगुरुवायूरप्पा शरणं श्रीभट्टपादम् अनिशं हृदि भावयामि। वंशीविभूषितकरात् नवनीरदाभात् पीताम्बरात् अरुणबिम्बफलादरोष्टात् पूर्णेन्दुसुन्दरमुखात् अरविन्दनेत्रात् कृष्णात् परं किमपि तत्त्वमहं न जाने। കൈരണ്ടും കൂപ്പി ഞാൻ വീണ്ടും ഇറക്കുന്നു നീരജലോചന നിന്നോടായി. ഏതീനു മഞ്ഞനെ കുമ്പിടേണ്ടാത്തോറു രീതിയിൽ നീ എന്നെ പാലിക്കുന്നായി. കൃഷ്ണ ഹരേ ജയ കൃഷ്ണ ഹരേ ജയ കൃഷ്ണ ഹരേ ജയ കൃഷ്ണ ഹരേ. Good afternoon, everyone. So just start with 61 today. So Rupa, you can be a student, and Vijaya, you can be a student. Okay, first half. Let me just get it ready. Okay, so this one, the 61 is Yajva Patni Uddharana Varnanam. So this is like the Yajva Patni are people who are the wives of the people who perform Vedic sacrifices. So Uddharana is blessing the wives of the people who do Vedic sacrifices. That's this chapter. So stanza 1. ततश्च वृन्दावनतोऽति दूरतो वनं गतस्त्वं खलु गोपगोकुलैः Tridantare bhakta taradvijangana kadambakanugrahana graham vahan. So we saw in the last one was the stealing of the clothes, the Gopika Vastrapaharanam we saw. So then Krishna, once when they were out in Vrindavan, when they were grazing, so they decided to go to a portion of the Vrindavana forest which they hadn't gone to before. So here Bhattaripat says, you decide to go there because there were a set of women in that area who had heard about how the Gopikas were blessed to be around Krishna and they're enjoying the company of Krishna. They're able to spend time with Krishna. But however, these women who were the wives of some Vedic people, Vedic priests, so they were really wanting to see Krishna. So Krishna knew that, I had to give a chance to bless them. So he decided that this one day we are going to go and graze the cows in that portion of the forest. So they all go there. So tatascha Vrindavanatoti durato, ati durato, but you can say it together, Vrindavanatoti durato, which means farther away from Vrindavan. Vanam gatastvam khalu gopa gokulaihi, hridantare bhaktatara dvijangana, put a plus, kadamba kanu grahana graham vahan. So it's kind of one close together. So anugraham, that word is there. So kadamba kanu grahana graham vahan. You can kind of say it together. Tatascha vrindavanatoti durato vanam gatastvam khalu gopa gokulaihi hridantare bhaktatara dvijangana kadambakanu grahana graham vahan.
Tatascha vrindavanatoti durato vanam gatastvam khalu gopa gokulaihi hridantare bhaktataradvijangana kadambakanugrahana graham vahan. Tatascha vrindavanatoti durato vanam gatastvam khalu gopa gokulaihi hridantare bhaktataradvijangana kadambakanugrahana graham vahan.
Tadascha vrindavanatoti durato vanam gatastvam khalu gopa gokulaihi hridantare bhaktatarat vijangana kadambakanugraham vahan. Tadascha vrindavanatoti durato vanam gatastvam khalu gopa gokulaihi hridantare bhaktatarat vijangana kadambakanugraham vahan.
Yes, so the kadambaka is one word. Okay. Kadamba is one word. Anugraha is the other word, right? Kadambakanugrahana graham.
Kadambakanugrahana graham vahan.
Tato nirikshya sharanye vanantare Kishoralokam kshuditam trishakulam adurato yajnaparan dvijan prati vyasarjayodi divyachanayatan. So when they were grazing, so all the Gopa boys then tell Krishna and Balarama that, what, we are feeling very tired, it's very hot, and we are feeling thirsty, we are feeling hungry, because they have gone ati durato, they have gone very far away from the standard forest. So there was nothing available there. So they said, we are feeling very hungry. So Krishna then tells them that, you go further away, you'll see a bunch of priests who are actually performing some Vedic sacrifices. So he says they are doing some major yajna today. He says you go there and they perform his Angirasa sacrifice or a yajna, which is to get themselves to heaven. So that is a sacrifice they're doing. So they have a lot of offerings they're putting into it. So he says you go ask them for some food. So then the boys say that, if we go and ask, they're not going to give, because they're a bunch of like cowherd boys, right? So they are very afraid to go ask, small boys. So Krishna and Balarama says, no, don't worry. You go tell them that Krishna and Balarama are here and they have told us to go get food. So you eat there, also bring us back food. So Krishna sends them to those Brahmanas. So these Brahmanas, just I'll tell, they call us the Purva Mimamsas. So Mimamsas is a kind of a type of Vedic worship where they believe in the Vedas. Now there is a Purva Mimamsa, Uttara Mimamsa. The Purva Mimamsas, are folks who don't necessarily believe in God or bhakti or devotion, but they believe that my responsibility is to do the Vedic sacrifices. By doing the Vedic offerings, by doing the yajna, that will automatically give me all the benefits. I don't have to believe in God or devotion, any of that sort. That's the Purva Mimamsa. Then that became Uttara Mimamsa, where they also still believe in Vedic sacrifices, but they do believe in some superpower, supreme personality who then gets it and then will give them the benefit. That's the difference. So these are Purva Mimamsa priests who are doing this. Tato nirikshya sharane vanantare, kishora lokam shuditam trishakulam adurato yajnaparan dvijan prati, vyasarjayo didivi yachanaya than. Tato nirikshya sharane vanantare किशोरलोकं क्षुदितं त्रिशाकुलं अदूरतो यज्ञपरान् द्विजान् प्रति व्यसर्जयो दिव्याचनायतान्.
ततो निरीक्ष्यान् शरणे वनान्तरे किशोरलोकं क्षुदितं त्रिशाकुलम् अदूरतो यज्ञपरान् द्विजान् प्रति व्यसर्जयो दिवि याचनायतान्. ततो निरीक्ष्या शरणे वनान्तरे किशोरलोकं क्षुदितं त्रिशाकुलम् अदूरतो यज्ञपरान् द्विजान् प्रति व्यसर्जयो दिवि याचनायतान्.
ततो निरीक्ष्या शरणे वनान्तरे किशोरलोकं क्षुदितं त्रिशाकुलम् अधूरतो यज्ञपरान् द्विजान् प्रति व्यसर्जयोति दिव्याचनायतान्.
And divi is one word. Divi yachanayatan.
Oh, Vesarjayo divi. Okay, divi yachanayatan. Divi yachanayatan. Okay. Tadho niriksha charane vanantare kishoralokam shuditam trishakulam adhurato yajnaparan dvijan prati vyasarchayo divi yachanayatan.
Answer 3. Gateshvato teshvabhidayate bhidam kumarakeshvodanayacishu prabho shrutistira apyabhinindyurashrutim nakinchiduchuscha mahisurottamaha. So the boys then go there and they're also very afraid, because like small boys, right? And then they go, all these big priests are doing the sacrifice. So they go and then with respect, they're waiting patiently, right? To get a chance to even talk, because they're all chanting and everything. So they're all waiting patiently. And then when the Brahmins looked at the boys, then they say that, we're all normal cowherd boys. And we come here because, one of our friends, Krishna and Balarama, who are there, they didn't come, but they have sent us because we are very hungry and we are actually looking for some food to eat. And we were told that by coming to you, you will be able to give us some food, right? So when the boys come and say that, those Brahmanas don't even respond to it. So that's why Bhadrapad says here very beautifully that they are chanting Shruti, which is referring to the Vedas. And however, they were Ashruti. Shruti also means to hear, because Vedas were heard, right? So Vedas is also called Shruti. Shruti has two meanings, to hear and also to mean the Vedas. So they were chanting Shruti Sthira. They were sitting and chanting the Vedas, but they were Ashruti. They did not even hear or pay attention to what the boys were actually telling. And they completely ignored whatever the boys were telling, and they didn't even acknowledge that the boys were present there. They continued to do what they were doing here. Gateshvato Teshvabhidaya te bidham, kumara keshvodana yachishu prabho shruti sthira apyabhinindyurashrutim. So that word you can only break it apyabhinindyurashrutim, but you better to say it together. Apyabhinindyurashrutim, na kinchid uchuscha, if you want to break it. Na kinchid uchuscha mahi surottamaha. गतेष्वथो तेष्वभिधायते भिदां कुमारकेष्वोदनयाचिषु प्रभो श्रुतिस्थिरा अप्यभिनिन्द्युरश्रुतिं न किञ्चिदूचुश्च महीसुरोत्तमाः
गतेष्वतो तेष्विभिधायते भिधां कुमारकेष्वोदनयाचिषु प्रभो श्रुतिस्थिरा अप्यभिनिन्दुरश्रुतिं न किञ्चिदुच्चुश्च महीसुरोत्तमाः गतेष्वतो तेष्वभिधायते भिधां कुमारकेष्वोदनयाचिषु प्रभो श्रुतिस्थिरा अप्यभिनिन्दुरश्रुतिं न
भिनिन्द्युरश्रुतिं
श्रुतिस्थिरा अप्यभिनिन्दुरश्रुतिं न किञ्चिदुच्चुश्च महीसुरोत्तमाः
गदेष्वधो सेष्वपिधायधे पितां कुमारकेष्वोदनयाचिषु प्रभो श्रुतिस्थिरा अभ्यभिनियुरश्रुतिं न किञ्चिदुचितु शुश्च महीषुरोत्तमाः गदेष्वधो तेष्वपिधाय ते पितां कुमारकेष्वोदनयाचिषु प्रभो श्रुतिस्थिरा अभ्यभिनियुरश्रुतिं न किञ्चिदु शुश्च महीषुरोत्तमाः
अनादरात् खिन्नधियो हि बालकाः समाययुर्युक्तमिदं हि यज्वसु चिरादभक्ताः खलु ते महीसुराः कथं हि भक्तं त्वयि तैः समर्प्यते. So this Brahmins, like the people they've been doing the things. So for them, although they had heard about Krishna and all that stuff, but anyway, like I said, they are Purva Mimamsa. So they don't believe in anything greater than the Vedas or performing the rituals. For them, that is the highest of the things that they believe in. So, they did not even respond with a yes or no to the boys, and they completely, just rejected the boys, because Bhaktipad says that for some people who have no devotion, what else is not possible? Because they were absolutely not devoted, they did not have any concern or anything. So they kind of rejected the boys. So the boys now come back and they tell Krishna and Balarama that, we went there, we tried to ask, but we did not even get an yes or no. We were completely ignored. Like we said earlier, Ashrutim. They did not even hear what we had to say, and we got completely rejected, right, by the Brahmins there. So Anadarat Khinnadiyo hi balakaha, samayayur yuktamidam hi yajvasu chirad abhakta. If you want to break it, chirad abhaktaha, put a ih sound, bhaktah khalu te mahisuraha, khatam hi bhaktam tvai taihi, put a is tvai tais samarpyate. So anadarat khinnadhiyo hi balakaha samhayayuryuktamidam hi yajvasu chirada bhaktah khalute mahisuraha katam hi bhaktam tvaitai samarpyate.
अनादरात् खिन्नधियो हि बालकाः समायुयुक्तमिदं हि यज्वसु चिरादभक्ताः खलु ते महीसुराः कथं हि भक्तं त्वयि तैः समर्पयेत् समर्प्यते sorry. अनादरात् खिन्नधियो हि बालकाः समाययुक्तमिदं हि यज्वसु चिरादभक्ताः खलु ते महीसुराः कथं हि भक्तं त्वयि तैः समर्प्यते.
अनादरात् खिन्नधियो हि बालकाः समाययुर्युक्तमिदं midam hi ikshvasu sirada bhaktak kalute mahi shuraha kadam hi bhaktam tvaitai samarpyate anadarat kinnatiyo hi palakaha samayayur yuktamidam midam hi ikshvasu sirada bhaktak kalute mahi shuraha kadam hi bhaktam tvaitai samarpyate.
Stanza 5. Nivedayadvam grihini janayamam disheyurannam karunakula imaha iti smitardhram bhavate rita gataha tedarakadara janam yayachire. So when they come and tell Krishna, then Krishna doesn't, he doesn't complain or whine about the men there. He just smiles. And then he says, you know what, you go back again. But he says this time you don't go to the front where the yajna is happening. You go to the back door. When you go to the back door, you will see the wives of this Brahminical priest. They are the ones who actually have the food. He says the Brahmanas are offering the food into the homam, but the main food is getting prepared in the back, and the women of the priests are the ones who are cooking the food and who are maintaining the food. He says, you go tell them that Krishna and Balarama have sent us and we need some food. And then he says they will definitely help you out, right? So Krishna and Balarama send the boys again. So with that, the boys now decide to go and they go back again, and this time they go to the back door and they go meet the wives of the house, the wives of the priests. Niveda yadvam grihini janayamam, comma, disheyurannam karunakula imaha iti smitardhram bhavaterita gataha. Put a visarga there at the end of that line, comma, gataha. Next line, the is, if you have it, that goes away. Te daraka darajanam yayachire. Nivedayadvam grihini janayamam disheyurannam karunakula imaha iti smitardhram bhavaderita gataha tedharaka darajanam yayachire.
निवेदयध्वं गृहिणी जनाय मां दिशेयुरन्नं करुणाकुला इमाः इति स्मितार्धं भवते ऋतागताः ते दारकादारजनं ययाचिरे निवेदयध्वं गृहिणी जनाय मां दिशेयुरन्नं करुणाकुला इमाः इति स्मितार्धं भवते ऋतागताः ते दारकादारजनं ययाचिरे.
निवेदयत्वं गृहिणी जनाय मां तिशेयुरन्नं करुणाकुला इमाः इति स्मितार्त्रं भवेथेरिता कथाः ते तारका तारजनं ययाचिरे निवेदयत्वं गृहिणी जनाय मां तिशेयुरन्नं करुणाकुला इमाः इति स्मितार्त्रं भवतेरिता कदाः ते तारका तारजनं ययाचिरे.
गृहीतनाम्नि त्वयि सम्भ्रमाकुलाः चतुर्विधं भोज्य रसं प्रगृह्यताः चिरं धृतत्वत्प्रविलोकनाग्रहाः स्वकैर्निरुद्धा अपि तूर्णमाययुः. So the boys now go and admit and talk to the Brahmin wives and say that, you know what, we are cowherds. They say the same thing. We are some cowherds who come from Vrindavan, and our friends Krishna and Balarama are the ones who are actually sent us. We are extremely hungry and we would request some food, and we also want to take some food back to Krishna and Balarama. So the moment the wives heard about it, and like I said, they have also heard about Balarama and Krishna from before, when the word spreads, and however, their husbands have been kind of keeping them controlled to the house, so they have not had a chance to even go to Vrindavan and see Krishna or anything, but they've heard about Krishna a lot. So the moment they heard that Krishna and Balarama have come near their house, they immediately leave everything they're doing, and this is Chatur Vidam Bhojya. They take 4 types of food. So the 4 types of food, are kind of like the things that can be chewed, the ones you swallow, the ones you lick, and the ones you suck. 4 types of food that are there. So they have all these 4 types of food which they are prepared for the Homam. They immediately take everything and they decide to leave. When they decide to leave, they have to, of course, pass through the front. So the husbands and the other brothers and everything there, they tell them, you cannot leave because the Homam is happening. All this has to go into the Homam. You cannot give the food away before the Homam is done, and you cannot leave. And so no matter what they said, they were threatened that if you leave, you cannot come back and all that. But these women say that's okay. And they all just go as a group and they take all the food and they decide to go and give it to Krishna and Balarama. So Grihita Namni Twai Sambhrama Kulaha. Put a visarga there, comma. Next line, that ish goes away. Chaturvidham Bhojya Rasam Pragrihyataha Chiran Dhrita Twat Pravilokana Grahaha. It's one word. Pravilokana Grahaha, comma. Swakhair Niruddha Api Turnamayayuhu. Grihitanamne Twai Sambhrama Chaturvidham Bhojya Rasam Pragrihyataha Chiram Dhritatvat Pravilokana Grahaha Swakair Niruddha Apiturnamayayuhu.
Grihitanamni Tvai Sambhrama Chaturvidham Bhojya Rasam Chaturvidham Bhojya Rasam Pragrihyataha Chiram Dhritatvat Pravilokana Grihaha Swake Nirundha Apiturnamayayuhu.
Rupa, the third line, Vilokana Grahaha. Gra, not Gr.
Vilokana Grahaha.
Yeah.
Grihita Namni Tvai Sambhrama Kulaha Chaturvidham Bhojya Rasam Pragrihyataha Chiram Dhritatvat Pravilokana Grihaha Swake Nirundhya Apiturnamayayuhu.
And again, again you're saying Grihaha, you're saying third line. Grahaha. Grahaha.
Grahaha.
And then the fourth line, first word, Swakair Niruddha. There is no in sound there, just Niruddha.
Swake Niruddha.
Yeah.
Apiturnamayayuhu.
Yeah.
Grahitanamni Tvai Sambhrama Saturvidham Bhojya Rasam Prakruhyataha Chiram Tvat Pravilokana Grahaha Swaghair Nirutta Abhiturnamaayayuhu. Grihitanamni Tvai Sambhrama Chaturvidham Bhojya Rasam Prakruhyataha Chiram Trita Tvat Praviloka Nagrahaha Swaghair Nirutta Abhiturnamaayayuhu.
107. Vilola pincham chikure kapolayoho samulasat kundalamadranikshite nidhaya bahum suhrudam sasimanistitam bhavantam samalokayantataha. So now when these women come there, so what they see, very beautiful, it says, in the banks of Yamuna, Krishna is standing now. He's standing with some of his other friends also. So they see this, they finally get to see Krishna. They have never seen him, right? They only heard about him. So they see this person who is of this dark blue, black complexion, who's standing, who's wearing the yellow color or a golden color garment. He has this, below the pincham, he has this peacock feather, which is actually stuck on his head. Then he's actually wearing this, what do you call a garland, which is actually made up of the forest flowers, right? He's wearing that. And then it says that he's standing with such that his one hand is placed on his French shoulder. So like, all these small boys to stand, he is resting his hand on his French shoulder. And then he has his earrings, the kundalam he's having, and then he's smiling. And the smiling face of Krishna, they are actually seeing, and they get very excited, elated, because they've heard and finally they're getting to see him, and they feel it's totally worth it because they've all left their husbands and they've all left the house with everything behind, right? Gone against the wishes. And by looking at Krishna, they forget all those things. all that they think they know are absolutely sure what they did was not a mistake. So they feel extremely happy by looking at Krishna standing with his friends. Bilola pincham chikure kapolayoho, samullasat kundalam ardram ikshite. Three different words there, but you can say it together. Kundalam ardram ikshite. Nidhaya bahum suhrudamsa simani, put a plus, sthitam bhavantam samalokayanta taha. Bilola pincham chikure kapolayoho samullasat kundalamadramikshite nidhaya bahum suhrudam sasimani sthitam bhavantam samalokayanta taha.
विलोलपिञ्चं चिकुरे कपोलयोः समुल्लसत्कुण्डलमार्द्रमीक्षिते निधाय बाहुं सुहृदं ससीमनि स्थितं भवन्तं समलोकयन्तताः विलोलपिञ्चं चिकुरे कपोलयोः समुल्लसत्कुण्डलमार्द्रमीक्षिते निधाय बाहुं सुहृदं ससीमनि निधाय बाहुं सुहृदं ससीमनि स्थितं भवन्तं समलोकयन्तताः
विलोलपिञ्जं सिकुरे कपोलयोः समुल्लसत्कुण्डलम् आर्द्रमीक्षिते निधाय बाहुं सुहृदं ससीमनि स्थितं ससीमनि स्थितं भवन्तं समलोकयन्तताः विलोलपिञ्जं सिकुरे कपोलयोः समुल्लसत्कुण्डलम् आर्द्रमीक्षिते निधाय बाहुं सुहृदं ससीमनि स्थितं भवन्तं समलोकयन्तताः.
तथा च काचित् त्वदुपागमोऽध्यता गृहीतहस्तादयितेन यज्वना तदैव सञ्चिन्त्य भवन्तमञ्जसा विवेश कैवल्यमहो कृतिन्यसौ. So here it just talks about one of these wives who also wanted to join the rest of the gang. There are a group of wives who they all stayed together, right, with all these priests. However, one of the wives' husband did not let her go. So he held her hand and made sure that physically she doesn't get to go. So it says here, and Bhattipa doesn't give any more details, but I think Vijaya Shubhadra said some name last class when I was teaching for them. She said name of the person. I don't know what the name of the person is. Anyway, so she said that person, she got herself locked into the house because her husband wouldn't let her leave, and she got locked. And then she was so depressed, and she then kept thinking about it, and she went into some kind of a trance, and she gave up her life. And then she's actually very fortunate, because even though she didn't get to see you, she gave up her life thinking about you. So she is the one who is actually attaining you earlier than all of these other women. So I don't know, Vijaya, உங்களுக்கு அந்த பேர் தெரியுமான்னு சொல்லிட்டு anyway.
பேர் தெரியல, பட் ஆனா நீங்க சொல்ற I know that person, she reaches moksham. I mean,
exactly.
Yeah,
so that's what it says here. She reaches liberation. She reaches, she gets liberated earlier than all of them, because she was in such a state that she was so depressed and so out of guilt that she could not see Krishna has come there. Everybody is getting to go, I am not getting to go, and she's in that state, and she gives up her life with that, right? And Bhattipa says, what a wonder. It's a great wonder. She's very fortunate that she actually gets liberated earlier than all of these other women do. But she has some name, I forget the name anyway. So tadacha kachit twadupagam odhyata, grihita hasta daitena yajvana tadaiva sanchintya bhavantam anjasa, vivesha kaivalyamaho kritinyasau. तदा च काचित् त्वदुपागमोऽध्यता गृहीतहस्तादयितेन यज्वना तदैव सञ्चिन्त्य भवन्तमञ्जसा विवेश कैवल्यमहो कृतिन्यसौ.
तदा च काचित् त्वदुपागमोद्यतो गृहीतहस्तात्
Mudyata.
मोध्यतां गृहीतहस्तादयितेन यज्वनाम् तदैव सञ्चिन्त्य भवन्तमञ्जसा विवेश कैवल्यमहो कृतीन्यसौ तदा च काञ्चित् त्वदुपागमोद्यता गृहीतहस्तादयितेन यज्वनाम् तदैव सञ्चिन्त्य भवन्तमञ्जसा विवेश कैवल्यमहो कृतीन्यसौ
तथा च काचित् त्वदुपागमोद्यता गृहीतहस्ता तयितेन यज्वना तदैव सञ्चिन्त्य भवन्तमञ्जसा विवेश कैवल्यमहो कृदिन्यसौ तथा च काचित् त्वदुपागमोद्यता गृहीतहस्ता तयितेन यज्वना तदैव सञ्चिन्त्य भवन्तमञ्जसा विवेश कैवल्यमहो कृदिन्यसौ.
आधाय भोज्यान्यनुगृह्यताः पुनः त्वदङ्गसङ्गस्पृहयोज्झतीर्गृहं विलोक्य यज्ञाय विसर्जयन्निमाः चकर्त भर्तॄन् पिता स्वगर्हणान्. So Krishna and the boys, they consume the food that these women give. And, then Krishna is very happy, right? So he then asked, he asked the women, thanks a lot for giving this. So what do you want, right? Because you now come and helped us out by giving us food and everything. So what do you want from me, right? So the wives say that we wanted to come and see you, but our husbands did not even let us go. So they say we fought with our husbands, right? We fought with the people in our house, our brothers and our husbands and everything. And we've now fought and come to see you. And the moment we've seen you now, we don't want to go back, right? And they say, first of all, our husbands won't take us back also because we fought with them and come. And two, having spent some time with you, Krishna and Rama, we don't even feel like leaving you. So they say, can we just stay with you? I know it may sound irrational, but that's what they say. They say, we just want to stay with you. And remember, he's only a 7-year-old boy, right? 6 or 7-year-old boy. So we just want to stay with you. We don't want to go anywhere. Anywhere, husbands are not going to take us back. So at the time, Krishna says the same thing he's going to tell the Gopikas later. He's telling them also. He says that whatever duty you have to still do your duty. You can't escape from your duty, right? He says you have a duty where you have to now help your husbands perform yajna. That's what your Ejva Patni. You're helping your husbands perform yajna. So you cannot leave that, abandon all of that duty. You still have to perform your duty. And you don't have to be with me physically or see me physically to still think about me, right? You can still think about me. You can still remember me, offer everything to God. So he gives them a long series of discourse. Krishna tells them and says that I will personally come and speak to your husbands and make sure that you all are getting taken back home. But he says you can always be thinking about me, and whatever you do, you offer it to me, but don't not do your duties. You still have to absolutely do your duties. So with them, Krishna, then they all come back, and then their husbands also accept them, and they completely sacrifice successfully. This is the message, which is a key message which Krishna is giving here. He gives it to the Yajva Patni. He also gives it to the Gopikas also later, and to everybody, which will say that you cannot just abandon your duties completely and then saying, that if people are dependent on you, you can't just completely abandon that and go, right? At the same time, the Lord doesn't have to be physically in front of you for you to love him or think about him all the time. So you can always be doing your duty and at the same time thinking about the Lord, and that is enough. That is the right way to do it, especially when you are in a committed thing like that. So adaya bhojyani anugrihya. So it's bhojyani anugrihya. Two different words, but the sandhi is there. So bhojyani anugrihya taha. Put a iftah. Punaha. Put a visarga at the end, comma. Next line, that is goes away. Twadanga sanga sprihayojhatir griham vilokya yajnaya visarjayannimaha. Put a visarga and a comma. The next line, the ish goes away. Chakarta Bhartrunapi. There's a double r there. Some books don't have it. Bhartrunapi tasva garhanan. Actually, I wanted to switch from this because we may not be able to do full 20 today. Radha, are you there? Can you be a student?
Yeah.
And then the Sundari, you can be a student, okay? In the stanza in there. आधाय भोज्यान्यनुगृह्यताः पुनः त्वदङ्गसङ्गस्पृहयोज्झतीर्गृहं विलोक्य यज्ञाय विसर्जयन्निमाः चकर्त भर्तॄन् पिता स्वगर्हणान्.
आदाय भोज्यान्यनुगृह्यता पुनः स्पृहयोज्झतीर्गृहं विलोक्य यज्ञाय विसर्जयन्निमाः चकर्थ भर्तॄन्नपि तास्वर्गर्हणान्. तास्वगर्हणान्. Okay. आदाय भोज्याननुगृह्यता पुनः त्वदङ्गसङ्गस्पृहयोज्झतीर्गृहं विलोक्य यज्ञाय विसर्जयन्निमाः चकर्थ भर्तॄन्नपि तास्वगर्हणान्.
आदाय भोज्याननुगृह्यताः पुनः त्वदङ्गसङ्गस्पृहयोज्झतीर्गृहं विलोक्य यज्ञाय विसर्जयन्निमाः चकर्त भर्तॄन् अपि तास्वगर्हणान्. आदाय भोज्याननुगृह्यताः पुनः त्वदङ्गसङ्गस्पृहयोज्झतीर्गृहं विलोक्य यज्ञाय विसर्जयन्निमाः चकर्त भर्तॄन् अपि तास्वगर्हणान्.
निरूप्य दोषं निजमङ्गनाजने विलोक्य भक्तिं च पुनर्विचारिभिः प्रबुद्धतत्त्वैस्त्वमभिष्टुतो द्विजैः मरुत्पुराधीश निरुन्धि मे गदान्. So the Brahmins there, they kind of started punarvicharibihi. They started contemplating, they reflected over kind of what actually happened. And, they realized that it was their fault, that what had actually happened. And they truly understood the devotion that their wives actually had, right? And, like they say, sometimes it's some trigger point happens, right? And they realize what had gone through. So of course they forgive their wives, and they also realize the mistake they made. And they also even say that, all this life that we've been leading, of just performing these rituals blindly without having any devotion and been looking for just material benefits, and we completely missed that, and that we saw in our wives how devoted they were to you, and they also realized it. And then so they took their wives back, of course, right? And then the Krishna and the boys go back. So Marutpuradisha, O Lord of Guruvayur, Grirundi me Gadan, please eradicate all my ailments. So Nirupya dosham Nijam anganajane, vilokya bhaktim cha punar vicharibihi prabhuddha tattvais tvam abhishtuto. Like I said, abhishtuta means to praise. Tvam abhishtuto dvijaihi. Put a visarga there and a comma, dvijaihi. Next line, that ir goes away. Marutpuradhisha nirundhi me gadan. निरूप्य दोषं निजमङ्गनाजने विलोक्य भक्तिं च पुनर्विचारिभिः प्रबुद्धतत्त्वैस्त्वमभिष्टुतो द्विजैः मरुत्पुराधीश निरुन्धि मे गदान्.
निरूप्य दोषं निजमङ्गनाजने विलोक्य भक्तिं च पुनर्विचारिभिः प्रबुद्धतत्त्वैस्त्वम् अभिष्टुतो द्विजैः मरुत्पुराधीश निरुन्धि मे गतान्. निरूप्य दोषं निजमङ्गनाजने विलोक्य भक्तिं च पुनर्विचारिभिः प्रबुद्धतत्त्वैस्त्वम् अभिष्टुतो द्विजैः मरुत्पुराधीश निरुन्धि मे गतान्.
निरूप्य दोषं निजमङ्गनाजने विलोक्य भक्तिं च पुनर्विचारिभिः प्रबुद्धतत्त्वैस्त्वमभिष्टुतो द्विजैः मरुत्पुराधीश निरुन्धि मे गदान् निरूप्य दोषं निजम् अङ्गनाजने विलोक्य भक्तिं च पुनर्विचारिभिः प्रबुद्धतत्त्वैस्त्वमभीष्टुतो द्विजैः मरुत्पुराधीश निरुन्धि मे गदान्.
Krishnaya Parabrahmane Namaha. Complete 61. Go to 62. Is Indra Yagha Vighata Varnanam. So this is blocking the sacrifice to Indra. It's like the prelude to the Govardhana lifting, right? So stanza 1. Kadachit Gopalan Vihitamaka Vibhavan Nirikshatvam Shaure Magavamadamuddhvam Situmanaha Bijanannapyetan Vinayamridunandadi Pashupan Aprachah Kovayam Janaka Bhavata Mudhyama iti. So one day, this all the Gopas, everybody, right, all the Nandagopa, led by Nandagopa, all of these people. So they performed this annual sacrifice to Indra, to please Indra. So they were actually preparing all the arrangements for the big yajna that needs to be happening. So at that time, Krishna, who's a small boy, right? So he goes and decides to figure out, he wanted to humble the pride of Indra. That was the intent. So he goes and asks, in a very nice way. See, this time I always tell this to my kids also. If you want to question me, you can question me. But there's a manner to question. If you genuinely want to question, you ask it in a nice way. But of course, nobody does that, right? We always try to prove we are right. So we always question it that way. So Krishna goes and asks very nicely. He says, I see that you all are doing something here, right? Looks like you're performing a big sacrifice. And he says, I am a small boy. I don't know what this is for. So can you please explain to me what is it you're doing, why you're doing, how is it supposed to be done? He says, I want to truly understand what you are trying to do so that I can also participate in it and we also can, and he says, it's very important that even as boys, when we are performing some things, we want to understand the meaning of it. So he says, that is the reason that, we want to, I want to understand this. So he says, oh, Father, please tell me, what is it you guys are doing and why you're doing it, right? He asks all those questions. So kadachit gopalan, vihita makha sambhara vibhavan niriksha tvam shaure, magava madam udvamsitu manaha. If you can break the difference, magava madam udvamsitu manaha. Then we can do two lines and see. Kadachit gopalan vihita makha sambhara vibhavan niriksha tvam shaure magava madamudhvam situ manaha.
Kadachit gopalan vihidamakha sambhara vibhavan nirikhyatvam shaure maghavamadamudhvam situmanaha. Kadachit gopalan vihidamakha sambhara vibhavan nirikhyatvam shaure maghavamadam udhvam situmanaha.
कदाचित् गोपालान् विहितमख संभार विभवान् निरीक्ष्य त्वां शौरे मघवमदमुध्वंसितुमनाः.
In the second line after tvam shaure, there is a comma. Okay.
कदाचित् गोपालान् विहितमख संभार विभवान् निरीक्ष्य त्वां शौरे मघवमदमुध्वंसितुमनाः.
You're saying tvam, it's tvam shaure. Second line.
निरीक्ष्यत्वं शौरे मघवमदमुध्वंसितुमनाः.
Vijanannapyetan, double na, Vijanannapyetan, Vinaya mridu nandadi pashupan, put a in at the end of that line, next line the na becomes a. Aprichaha is there, put a ih sound, aprichah ko vayam, janaka bhavatam udyama iti. Vijanannapyetan Vinaya mridunandadi pashupan aprichah ko vayam janaka bhavadam udhyama iti.
Vijanan अप्येतान् विनय मृदु नन्दादि पशुपान् अपृच्छः को वायं जनक भवदामुद्यम इति विजानन्नप्येतान् विनय मृदु नन्दादि पशुपान् अपृच्छः को वायं जनक भवदामुद्यम इति
विजानन्नप्येतान् विनय मृदु नन्दादि पशुपान् अपृच्छः को वायं जनक भवताम् उद्यम इति विजानन्नप्येतान् विनय मृदु नन्दादि पशुपान् अपृच्छः को वायं जनक भवताम् उद्यम इति
Answer 2. Bhavashe nandastvām sutananu vidheyo magavato makho varshe varshe sukayati sa varshena prithivim nridham varshayattam nikhilam upajivyam mahitale visheshadasmakam trinasalila jivyahi pashavah. So when Nandagopa heard that question, he thought, what's a small boy, and it's not like he didn't even feel like Krishna was questioning the Vedas or questioning the intent of it. He genuinely felt like Krishna had no idea why this was happening, and he was genuinely asking a question, hey, what are we doing? Why are we doing, right? So he also then decides to answer it. He says, he calls all the boys and Krishna and all and says, look, Lord Indra is the controller of the rain. And he is the one who actually decides how much rain falls everywhere. And the rainwater that comes is very important for everything. See, because without rainwater, he says the earth is not going to survive, because the trees and all are not going to come, and there's going to be no water for anybody and no food. And he also says, remember, for us especially, we are cowherds. For us, we rely on cattle, and the cattle has to eat the grass and the trees. And the grass and the trees are only going to come when there is rain. Right? And so everybody has to worship rain. And now for us it's even more important that we worship Indra. And that's why he says we offer him these grains and everything else, anything that we can, we offer to Indra. And that's why Indra in return will actually give us rain. So he says this is purely kind of out of the sound tradition that we all follow, the Gopas follow, that we always do this to Indra every year. And then if we don't do it, then we are actually going to get bad fortune. There's going to be no rain and we all have to suffer, right? So Nandagopa is explaining that to Krishna. Bhabashe nandastvam, suta nanu vidheyo maghavato, makho varshe varshe, sukhayati sa varshena prithivim. Bhabashe nandastvam suta nanu vidheyo maghavato makho varshe varshe sukhayati sa varshena prithivim.
Bhabashe nandastvam sutananu vidheyo maghavato makho varshe varshe sukhayati sa varshena prithivim. Bhabashe nandastvam sutananu vidheyo maghavato makho varshe varshe sukhayati sa varshena prithivim.
बभाषे नन्दस्त्वां सुतननु विधेयो मघवतो मखो वर्षे वर्षे सुखयति स वर्षेण पृथिवीं बभाषे नन्दस्त्वां सुतननु विधेयो मघवतो मखो वर्षे वर्षे सुखयति स वर्षेण पृथिवीं
Nrinam varsha yatham, nikhilam upajivyam mahitale, visheshad asmakam, if you want to break it, visheshad asmakam, trina salila, some books have jiva, you change it to jivya, trina salila jivya hi pashavaha. Nrinam varsha yatham nikhilam upajivyam mahitale visheshadasmakam trinasalila jivyahi pashavah.
Nrinam varshayattam nikhilam upajivyam mahitale visheshadasmakam trinasalila jivyahi pashavah. Nrinam varshayattam nikhilam upajivyam mahitale visheshadasmakam तृणसलिलजीव्या हि पशवः
नृणां वर्षायत्तं निखिलमुपजीव्यं महितले विशेषादस्माकं तृणसलिलजीव्या हि पशवः नृणां वर्षायत्तं निखिलमुपजीव्यं महितले विशेषादस्माकं तृणसलिलजीव्या हि पशवः
Answer 3. इति श्रुत्वा वाचं पितुरै भवानाह सरसं धिगे तन्नो सत्यं मगभजनिता वृष्टिरिति यत् अदृष्टं जीवानां सृजति खलु वृष्टिं समुचितां महारण्ये वृक्षाः किमिव बलिमिन्द्राय ददते. So Krishna says some very amazing things in this, which is relevant for all our lives also. So he goes and tells his father that every soul which has taken birth right now is because of certain karma that they have actually created. And you are bound by that karma. He says, if you are born, the whatever effects of karma, you have to realize you are going to face it. There's no escaping that, right? Unless you get liberated and you get directly blessed by the Lord. So he says, whatever you're experiencing, the consequences of your karma, you are bound to face it. He says there's no way like a demigod like Indra can change your consequence of your karma. He says, this, whatever the rain that you're having, the place where you're living, he says, there are certain things which you are directly bound by your karma. Something which happens to you is because of your karma. He says, then there is a collective karma of the people living in a region which dictates what happens to that region, right? She says when the rain is falling in a region, it is because it's the collective karma of people falling in that, because of which certain environmental things are happening. Indra is just like a postman, right? Think of it that way, very simply put. He's delivering something. He doesn't dictate whether you need to get the letter or you're not going to get it. If you're going to get a letter, you're going to get the letter. Somebody else is sending it. I'm talking about courier, whatever, right? FedEx, right? Somebody's shipping it, you're going to get it. FedEx is just a delivery mechanism. He says Indra is just a delivery mechanism. Indra doesn't get to dictate who sends what to whom, right? He says that's number one. And number two, he says, if Indra is the decider of who gets the rain, he says, Maharanye Vrikshaha, all these trees which you see in this forest, Kimiva Balim Indraya Dadate, what sacrifice do they offer Indra that water is pouring on them? They don't offer any sacrifices to Indra, because Indra's responsibility is to just deliver. You don't have to go please Indra, right? To actually for him to do his job. So he says you don't have to worship all these intermediate demigods whose responsibility is to do a certain task. It is their responsibility. They are supposed to do it whether you worship them or you do not worship them, right? So he says, why do you have to do it? And he'll continue to tell, right? What is next? He's going to tell what to do. But he says there's no use worshipping Indra and everything, right? So this, Dushyant, some of you came for his thing few weeks back. He, in one of his thing, he said, like in India, if you go to this government office and they don't do their job, right? Then you bribe them, then they'll do. So, somebody says, I'll say it in Tamil, he says, கொடுத்த பைசாக்கு நன்னா வேலை பண்ணுவார், அவர் ஹெல்ப் பண்ணுவார் அப்படிம்பார். I mean, for the money you give him extra, he's doing his job. He's not doing his job for the base salary he's making. He's doing it for the extra bribe you're doing. He's doing his job, right? So that is it. Krishna says you don't have. That's not Indra's duty. Is supposed to give rain. Whoever is supposed to get rain, they will get rain. Indra doesn't get to dictate or decide what happens. She says all these forest entries, they don't worship Indra. So why do we have to worship Indra? He's questioning, right? Iti shrutva vacham piturai, bhavanaha sarasam, dhige tanno satyam, maghava janita vrishtiriti yat. Iti shrutva vacham piturai, bhavanaha sarasam, dhige tanno satyam, maghava janita vrishtiriti yat.
इति श्रुत्वा वाचं पितुरै भवानाह सरसं दिगे दत्तन्नो सत्यं मघवजनिता वृष्टिरिति यत्. इति श्रुत्वा वाचं पितुरै भवानाह सरसं दिगे दत्तन्नो सत्यं.
No, I think you're saying adding an extra ta. Dhige tanno.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Dige tanno satyam मघवजनिता वृष्टिरिति यत् அது சொல்லறதா அது எப்படியோ
No, you added an extra thing, yeah.
சாரி
इति श्रुत्वा वाचं पितुरै भवानाः सरसं दिघे तन्नो सत्यं मघवजनिता वृष्टिरिति यत् इति श्रुत्वा वाचं पितुरै भवानाः सरसं दिघे तन्नो सत्यं मघवजनिता वृष्टिरिति यत्
Adrishtam जीवानां, सृजति खलु वृष्टिं समुचितां, महारण्ये वृक्षाः, किमिव बलिम् इंद्राय, if you want to break it, बलिम् इंद्राय ददते. अदृष्टं जीवानां सृजति खलु वृष्टिं समुचितां, महारण्ये वृक्षाः किमिव बलिमिन्द्राय ददते.
अदृष्टं जीवानां सृजति खलु वृष्टिं समुचितां, महारण्ये वृक्षाः किमिव बलमिन्द्राय ददते.
किमिव बलिम् इन्द्राय.
बलिं சொன்னேன்
बलं
बलं சொன்னேன் ओके ओके सॉरी. अदृष्टं जीवानां सृजति खलु वृष्टिं समुचितां, महारण्ये वृक्षाः किमिव बलिमिन्द्राय ददते.
अदृष्टं जीवानां सृजति खलु वृष्टिं समुचितां, महारण्ये वृक्षाः किमिव बलिम् इन्द्राय ददते. अदृष्टं जीवानां सृजति खलु वृष्टिं समुचितां, महारण्ये वृक्षाः किमिव बलिम् इन्द्राय ददते.
इदं तावत् सत्यं यदिह पशवो नः कुलधनं, तदा जीव्याभ्यासौ बलिरचलभर्त्रे समुचितः, सुरेभ्योऽप्युत्कृष्टाः ननु धरणिदेवाः क्षितितले, ततस्तेऽप्याराध्याः इति जगदिदत्वं निजजनान्. Krishna, he continues to say that you are right, that we are cowherds. So for us, the cows are the wealth. They are kind of our means to what we are trying to do. So we should absolutely protect our cows. And we live in the forest. And what do the cows do? The cows graze. And the cows go graze. They graze in Vrindavan forest. They go up the Govardhana mountain. And that's what they actually graze, right? And the Govardhana mountain is the source for the water for the cows and source for the food for the cows. So he says that is number one. And he says number two, he says is the learned people, the learned Brahmins. You know, people who actually, because if you come to think of it, olden days, the caste system, whatever that was there, everybody is supposed to do the duty. So the Brahmin's duty was to go and perform sacrifices and perform things for the benefit of the entire community, not just for their own individual means, right? So the Brahmins are supposed to do all this for the entire community. Says all those great Brahmins who are helping us out, praying for the entire community, you worship those Brahmins, you do good things to those Brahmins. And then here he says, even for Govardhana mountain, he's very clear. Krishna says, it's not like you have to go and give something to Govardhana so that he gives you back the trees and the water and everything. Govardhana, he says, did you even go ask Govardhana for, you know, for trees and flowers and fruits and water? No, but Govardhana mountain is giving it, right? Because he thinks it's its duty. So what you're doing is you're thanking the Govardhana mountain. So he says, you first go thank Govardhana mountain, go pray, worship it for the great help it is doing of giving, you know, flowers and trees and fruits and water and everything. And then you go worship the priests who are actually doing good things for the community. So Krishna says, all this food that you are actually doing right now, you go offer it to Govardhana mountain and go offer it to the priests instead of offering it to Indra. So idam tavat satyam, yadiha pashavo naha, put the ich on nah kuladanam, tada jivya yasau balir achala. If you want to break it, balir achala bhartre samuchitaha. The second line, there is no pause. Idham tavat satyam yadiha pashavo nah kuladhanam tada jivyaasau balirachala bhartre samuchitaha.
idam tavat satyam yadiha pashavo nah कुलधनं तदा जीव्यायासौ बलिरचलभर्त्रे समुचितः इदं तावत् सत्यं यदिह पशवो नः कुलधनं तदा जीव्यायासौ बलिरचलभर्त्रे समुचितः
इदं तावत् सत्यं यदिह पशवो नः कुलधनं तदा जीव्यायासौ बलिरचलभर्त्रे समुचितः इदं तावत् सत्यं यदिह पशवो नः कुलधनं तदा जीव्यायासौ बलिरचलभर्त्रे समुचितः
Surebhyopyutkrishtah. That's one word. Say it together. Surebhyopyutkrishtah. Put a visarga there and a comma. Nanu dharani devaha. You have to say that visarga because ksha is coming later. So you don't have to pause completely, but just a very brief pause. Devaha kshititale, comma. Tatas tepyaradhyaha. Another visarga there and comma. Iti jagaditha tvam nija janan. Surebhyopyutkrishtah nanu dharani devaha kshititale tatastepyaradhyaha iti jagaditha tvam nija janan.
सुरेभ्योऽप्युत्कृष्टाः ननु धरणि देवाः क्षितितले ततस्तेऽप्याराध्याः इति जगदिधत्वं निजजनान् सुरेभ्योऽप्युत्कृष्टाः ननु धरणि देवाः क्षितितले ततस्तेऽप्याराध्याः इति जगदिधत्वं निजजनान्
सुरेभ्योऽप्युत्कृष्टाः ननु धरणि देवाः क्षितितले ततस्तेऽप्याराध्याः इति जगदिधत्वं निजजनान् सुरेभ्योऽप्युत्कृष्टाः ननु धरणि देवाः क्षितितले ततस्तेऽप्याराध्याः इति जगदिधत्वं निजजनान्.
Bhavat vacham shrutva bahumatiयुतास्तेऽपि पशुपाः द्विजेन्द्रानर्चन्तो बलिमददुरुच्चैः क्षितिभृते यदुः प्रादक्षिण्यं सुभृशमनमन्नादरयुताः त्वमादशैलात्मा बलिमखिलमाभीरपुरतः. So Krishna then says, he rests his case by saying, this is what I think. He says, you all are learned as well. You decide whatever makes sense to you, right? He says, but this is my suggestion. This is how I am thinking, right? So they all listen and then they agree. They say, whatever Krishna says makes sense because they're all just cowherds. They don't have a lot of critical thinking knowledge, right? So they all say whatever Krishna says seems to make sense. So they say, that's fine. So we won't do any sacrifice to Indra this year. They invited all these Brahmins, priests, and then they all did the chanting and all the stuff. They offered them a lot of gifts and everything for the Brahmins for taking care of them. And then they now decided to give the entire food to Govardhana. So this is done in every year. I think for people who are in the northwest suburbs, Grace Lake Temple, they do this, right? They do this Govardhana Bhog. They bring multiple types of food. And coincidentally, one of the sessions, I think my Saturday morning class, the day we were doing this, it was happening in Grace Lake, right? So everybody ended up coming to that. So most of you may not be familiar with it, but I'll let you know when that happens this year. So they have multiple varieties of food, like 50, 60 varieties of food, and they offer it to Govardhana, right? So here, Krishna then realizes that common people like this Gopas, for them, it is, if you offer something into Agni, they see that food going away. But when you keep it in front of Govardhana, Govardhana is not going to come and eat, right? So now, how do you make them believe it? How do you make them actually feel? So Krishna then says, you go circumambulate Govardhana. He says, you go make a round. And then by the time they came, all the food was gone. So he says, Krishna, like how in Tirupati, the Lord himself is the mountain. Similarly, in Vrindavan, the Lord himself is Govardhana mountain. He comes in the form of Govardhana, or the Govardhana mountain comes from of Lord, whatever you want to think about it, and consumes the food. So he eats it. So when they finish the circumambulation and they come, all the food is gone. So now they feel like, Govardhana mountain has eaten the food. They are all very happy, right? That it protect us. So Bhavat Vacham Shrutva, Bahu Mati Yutastepi Pashupaha Dvijendran Archanto, if you want to break it, Dvijendran Archanto, comma, Balim Ada Duruchaihi. Again, the Visarga you say because the Ksha is coming. Balim Ada Duruchaihi Kshitibrite. Bhavat Shrutva Bahumati Yutastepi Pashupaha Dvijendran Archanto Balim Ada Duruchaihi Kshitibrite.
Bhavatvaacham shrutva bahumati-yutastepi pashupaha dvijendranarchando balimada durachaihi kshitibrite. Bhavatvaacham shrutva bahumati-yutastepi pashupaha dvijendranarchando balimada durachaihi kshitibrite.
भवद्वाचं श्रुत्वा बहुमतियुतास्तेऽपि पशुपाः द्विजेन्द्रानर्चन्तो बलिमददुरुच्चैः क्षितिभृते भवद्वाचं श्रुत्वा बहुमतियुतास्तेऽपि पशुपाः द्विजेन्द्रानर्चन्तो बलिमददुरुच्चैः क्षितिभृते
Vyaduhu, put a F, Vyaduh Pradakshinyam, comma, Subhrisham Anam Annadara Yutaha. If you want to break it, Subhrisham Anam Annadara Yutaha, put a Visarga there and comma. Next, the is goes away. Twamada Shailatma, comma, Balim Akhilam Abhira. Three different words if you want to break it. Balim Akhilam Abhira Purataha. I just remember the word. It's called Annakut. That is the name of that event. If you want to Google that and see, right? Annakut. That's the name of the function where they offer all the food to Govardhana. Vyaduh Pradakshinyam Subrishamanamannadharayutaha Twamada Shailatma Balimakilama Bhira Purataha.
Vyadav pradakshinyam subrishamanamannadharayutaha tvamadas shailatma balimakhilamabhira purataha. Vyadav pradakshinyam subrishamanamannadharayutaha tvamadas shailatma balimakhilamabhira purataha.
व्यधुः प्रादक्षिण्यं सुभृशम् अनम् अनादरयुताः त्वमादशैलात्मा बलिम् अखिलम् आभिरपुरतः व्यधुः प्रादक्षिण्यं सुभृशम् अनम् अनादरयुताः त्वमादशैलात्मा बलिमखिलम् आभिरपुरतः
Abhira, it's not landing there.
बलम् अखिलम् आभीरपुरतः.
Just do one more and stop today. Avochaschaivam tan kimiha bitatam me nigaditam girindro nanveshah swabhalimupabhungte swavapusha ayam gotra dvishisha kupithe rakshitumalam samastanityuktaha jahrushrakila gokula jushah. Krishna just says, look, I told you Govardhana will take care of us. You gave the food to Govardhana. Look, he's eaten all the food. So don't worry, no matter what happens, even if Indra comes to battle us, this Govardhana mountain is going to protect us some form or fashion. He'll continue to help our cows and everything, give us the water as it always does. Plus, even if Indra comes, Govardhana will take care. So all these Gopas, they all feel happy now. They decide to go home. Avochash chaivam tan, comma, kimiha vitatham me nigaditam, comma, girindro nanveshaha, comma, swa balim upabhungte swa vapusha. Avochaschaivam tan kimiha vitatam me nigaditam girindro nanveshaha swa balim upabhungte swa vapusha.
Avohaschaivam tan kimiha vidhatam me nigaditam girindro nanveshaha swabalimupa bhungte swavapusha. अवोजश्चैवं तान् किमिह विधतं मे निगदितं गिरीन्द्रो नन्वेषः स्वबलिमुपभुङ्क्ते स्ववपुषा
अवोचश्चैवं तान् किमिह वितथं मे निगदितं गिरीन्द्रो नन्वेषः स्वबलिम् उपभुङ्क्ते स्ववपुषा अवोचश्चैवं तान् किमिह वितथं मे निगदितं गिरीन्द्रो नन्वेषः स्वबलिम् उपभुङ्क्ते स्ववपुषा
अयं गोत्रो कॉमा गोत्रद्विषि च कुपिते रक्षितुमलं कॉमा समस्तान् इत्युक्ताः put a visarga there and comma ityuktaah jahrushur akhila if you want to break it jahrushur akhila gokula jushaha ayam gotro gotradvishi cha kupite rakshitumalam samastan ityuktaah jahrushur akhila gokula jushaha
जुषः वा जूषः वा
jushaha gokula jushaha
இங்க ஊ போட்டிருக்கேன்
Short.
ஓகே ஷார்ட் ஒன் ஓகே அயம் கோத்ரோ गोत्रद्विषि च कुपिते रक्षितुमलं समस्तानित्युक्ताः जहृषुरखिला गोकुलजुषः अयं गोत्रो गोत्रद्विषि च कुपिते रक्षितुमलं समस्तानित्युक्ताः जहृषुरखिला गोकुलजुषः
अयं गोत्रो गोत्रद्विषि च कुपिते रक्षितुमलं समस्तानित्युक्ताः जहृषुरखिला गोकुलजुषः अयं गोत्रो गोत्रद्विषि च कुपिते रक्षितुमलं समस्तानित्युक्ताः जहृषुरखिला गोकुलजुषः
Brahmane Namaha. We'll stop here. Next week we'll continue this and do the Govardhana Uddharana Varnanam. Sandhranandhavabodhatmakamanupamitam kaladeshavadibhyam nirmuktam nityamuktam nigamashatasahasrena nirbhasyamanam aspashtam dristamatre punarurupurusharthatmakam brahmatattvam tattavad bhati sakshat gurupavanapure ante bhagyam jananam कायेन वाचा मनसेन्द्रियैर्वा बुद्ध्यात्मना वा प्रकृते स्वभावात् करोमि यत् सकलं परस्मै नारायणायेति समर्पयामि. Thank you everybody.
Thank you, Rajeshri. So, அடுத்த வாரம் எப்ப நமக்கு
நான் மெசேஜ் பண்றேன் நான் குரூப்ல. ஓகே.
சண்டே ஆனா next week முடியாது.
I'll message in the group. I'll check because we'll have to get everybody back on the class. We missed a couple of classes. So
Okay.
Thank you, Rajesh.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Rajeshri. Thank you.
Thank you.